By the time I actually put this up, the last game in the Ys franchise so far, Nordics, will most likely be done. But for those who have jumped aboard it and you were wondering about where the timeline is in all this, prepare to buckle up because it's rather confusing. Hi, I'm your friendly neighborhood Tenkaichi, and this is a video brought to us by the people from Game Rant. And this is covering the entire timeline of the Ys franchise. Now, most people, I don't know why, some people will call it Ys or Weiss, but it's pronounced Ys. So, here we go. And mind you, I am still on it. So, like I said, by the time I put this up, I might be done with it, or I might be like third or fourth way there. I'm already on chapter 6, but by the time I put this up, I'll probably be on chapter 7. Who knows? Ys has a fragmented development history, with games released out of order making it challenging for new fans. You see that? Ys series includes diverse narratives set in unique locations with distinct gameplay mechanics. The franchise redefines mythology and cosmology, with each installment offering fresh perspectives and engaging gameplay. But one thing you had to admit to the entire franchise is it always echoes another part of itself. One of the oldest franchises in the RPG genre, Ys, dates back to 1987, originally released for the PC 8801. Ancient Ys Vanished was only the first installment in a legendary saga whose penchant for adventure is perhaps rivaled only by The Legend of Zelda. Despite the series' storied lineage, however, Ys has never garnered the Western attention it deserves. And that's pretty much a good thing. Because, imagine if you will, this series that has been around, it just hasn't been heard of, from a little known company that we've kind of heard in whispers but has never really been known for any big titles. And if you're wondering, Falcom. They're the same people who brought us Xanadu and Legacy of the Wizard. If you don't know, that was the fourth story in the Dragon Slayer Legend of Heroes series, which later you come to know as The Legend of Heroes. Like I said, it's been around, just nobody has ever spoke of it. Falcom has been around, just like they're just like, hi, we're Falcom. Of course, this in itself is because Ys hasn't exactly had the smoothest development history within the past 3 decades. Not even considering a lengthy hiatus because of a poorly timed pivot to the Super Famicom, the franchise has gone down through 3 distinct gameplay engines, with the games released in a non-chronological order as something of a rule. Part of Ys' charm stems from the fragmented nature of the franchise, but that can make getting into the JRPG franchise difficult for new fans, or is it? So, mind you, this was updated November 15th. The Ys franchise is still going strong and adding new games and stories to the ever-growing story of Adol. This includes a new entry to this list that summarizes the events of 10 through the Oblidio Gulf. While this game may be the 10th in the mainline installment, it chronologically takes place in the middle of existing games, and there have been a slew of other updates to bring this article up to modern practices and standards. Okay, folks, are you ready for the timeline? If not, too bad. You're going to learn it anyway. Starting with the first game, Origin. Unica and Hugo's adventure in the Tower of Darm. So, mind you, this game has been out on Steam and Switch and PS4. I would think it's on PS4. And the only version I've ever played was the Steam version. And this was developed by Falcom. Nihon Falcom. So, 700 years before series protagonist Adol Christine first set foot on Asteria, or Estoria, the world was on the brink of apocalyptic collapse, featuring 3 playable characters with distinct roots, and set exclusively in Ys' first final dungeon, Dom Tower. Origin is the only mainline entry to not be framed as one of Adol's personal travelogues. All the same, that only adds to the story's mystique. Discovering the Black Pearl and the twin goddesses missing from the floating island of Ys. A search party warps down to the surface to find them within Dom Tower. Origin sets the stage for Adol Christian's adventures, showing how the modern world came to be, along with offering further insight into Fina and Reed, 2 of the original Ys duology's most important characters. And then we go to where it all started in the 80s. I'm sorry. Where it all started in the 80s, and yet has been on multiple consoles since. 1 and 2. Adol's adventure in Estoria, and the floating continent of Ys, which has been around on the PC, the NES, the Master System, DOS, Apple IIG, Nintendo DS, Switch, and the Sharp X68000. It was released June 21st, 1987. Speaking of the duology, Ys 1 and 2 are ostensibly 2 halves of the same game. Ancient Ys Vanish, often referred to as Book 1, set in Estoria, and is Adol's first major adventure since leaving its home to explore the New World. Conquering the storm wall circling Estoria, Adol becomes the first to set foot on the secluded island, and finds himself in the middle of a divine conspiracy. Book 2 skyrocketed Adol up to the floating island of Ys, the mythical land that's often referred to in Vanish. Here all the legends Adol learned about Estoria turn out to be true, and he confronts the Clan of Darkness head on. Ys 1 and 2 are comparatively fairly simple RPGs, but they're bona fide classics presented magnificently. Oh, I forgot that there was also a restored version on the Saturn. Ys 1 and 2 weave a genuine fairy tale experience. Now, the third is what I'm playing now and what everybody else is playing now, which is 10 Nordics. So, there's a reason why I never call out, There's a reason why I never call out in my Let's Plays. Whenever I'm doing Ease, I never say Ease this. I always call it like from like say one like say I only deal with this 1 and 2. Like Ease book 1 and Ease book 1. Or if I were to redo 1, I would call it Ancient Ease Vanished. Book 2, because there's nothing, there's no like subtitle for book 2. East Wanderers from East is the old version, while the newer version is called Oath in Felghana. That's 3. And every time I start up a part of Nordics, I always say welcome back to Ease Nordics. Keep that in mind. So I say Ease Nordics or Ease 10. But the third in the story, chronologically, is Nordics. It's on Steam, Switch, PlayStation 4, and 5. It's the 10th game in the mainland game, but it chronologically takes place after the events of Ease 2, Ancient Ease Vanished final chapter. The game draws a lot of inspiration from Nordic culture for its storytelling along with the Norman conquest. Once again, the focus is on the central protagonist Adol, with him on his journey to Celceta. If you don't know what that is, 4. Known as Dawn of East, Mask of the Sun, and what they call it, Celceta. It's known as Dawn of East and Mask of the Sun. I'm pretty sure someone in the comments will just say it's actually called this. I'm like, yeah, I know. Brain fart. So, mind you, we're going 0, 1, 2, 10. And it's going to 4. So we're Dawn of East. And really, the central protagonist is more inclined in learning about the Norman culture. So it's more like the protagonist here is actually Karja. It's more Karja running the show than Adol. Adol's like, where are we going to next? But even though really that's what it really is. Like Adol is basically watching the journey unfold rather than leading the journey. The game features many different islands spread throughout the region of Obelia Gulf, where there is an ongoing conflict between the Normans and the Grieger. This leads to the vessel that Adol is traveling on being raided by pirates led by a Norman princess, Karja. It is during this interaction that Adol becomes linked to the princess, allowing the player to switch between the two throughout the game. This adds many moments of back and forth dialogue between the two for players to enjoy. And that's one thing I love about Nordics. Banter. Because that, if you don't know, that's why Dragon Age Origins was so good. The banter. It's like, it really builds up on knowing your character, knowing the cast. If not so the character, you as the player character, you'd be like, you're basically like looking at them. You're not the one talking, but you're offering like your insight, and that's what all Adol's doing. He's offering his insight, because every time it's more like, "What do you think, Adol? What do you think, brother?" You know, it's more like, "I think that. Well, shouldn't we do that? That's basically clear. It is during this interaction that Adol becomes linked to the princess, allowing the player to switch between the two throughout the game. This adds many moments of back and forth dialogue between the two for players to enjoy. The story involves the power of mana through the Lila Shell and seemingly unkillable monsters. A bond grows between the two as they uncover the mysteries surrounding these events and resolve the conflict that plagues the Obelia Gulf. Now we get to the one that the word escapes me, but it's Memories of Celceta, otherwise known as Dawn of Ys or Mask of the Sun. So number 4 in the series is Dawn of Ys. And this is released on PS4 as well as on Steam. This came out in September 27, 2012. And a reminder, this is a retelling, not a remake. It's a retelling of Dawn of Ys. I forgot to mention, this came out October 25th, 2024. So this is the new kid on the block. Alright, so here we go. Following his adventure from the previous installment, Adol returns to decompress with his soon-to-be eternal travel partner Dogi. Not long after, he parts ways with Dogi in the frontier town of Kazanin, wanting to explore what Celceta has to offer. Unfortunately, he loses all of his memories and must undergo the task of charting the Great Forest for the Roman Empire, a force that will soon come to oppose Adol. In 9. What's most notable about Adol's adventure in Celceta is not the story itself, but how it speaks to the franchise framing. Just as each game is a volume in Adol's travel logs, every localization, port, or remake is in its own translation. Before Memories of Celceta solidified itself as the most canonical translation, the Dawn of Ys, or Memories of the Sun, or Mask of the Sun. Offered wildly different interpretations of Adol's time in the country, only having reference to his travel notes. Which leads to the third game, and my first brush into the franchise, Wanderers from Ys, otherwise known as Ulf in Felghana. This came out June 30th, 2005. The newer version, mind you, because the earlier version came out in the 90s on Super Nintendo as Wanderers from Ys. And it's on Steam, PSP, Switch, PS4, and 5. Ulf in Felghana is set 1 year after the events of Memories of Celceta, albeit releasing first. A now 19-year-old Adol Christine takes a break from adventuring. Players visit Dogi's homeland of Felghana and hometown of Redmond, only to find himself in the middle of yet another adventure. For what it's worth, Ulf in Felghana is one of the most low-stakes Ys stories, mainly centering on personal family matters, with the apocalyptic danger only coming in the end and never coming off as too bearing a threat. Ulf in Felghana is significant in its insignificance and is a crucial step in Adol establishing himself as a casual hero and adventurer. That said, Adol's time in Felghana leads to his first major encounter with Gabalan, setting up what is arguably the key plot point in Part 6, Arc of Nepishtim. The sixth in line following that is Kefin, Kingdom of Sand. And this is something that, if you've ever played the sixth game, which is called Arc of Nepishtim, I actually had the only Ys game I've ever had coming up as a gamer was Arc of Nepishtim. So when I first heard Zandria, I'm like, what the hell's Zandria? And this is a beautiful thing, because he, like I said, for me, my first brush of the series was 3. But me having a part of the series is 6. So me having a part of it, and then later down the line with emulation, I managed to play through all of the games up to now. So now I'm on the quote unquote last of what I like to call Beyond the End in my new playlist covering 8, 9, and 10. Because I do have playlists for each of the games. One covering his first 4, which is basically 1 and 2, 3, and 4. The second in the line is, that's what I call the Legacy of Ys, which is covering 1 and 2, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then next is Ys the Next, 5, 6, and 7. Then the third one is 8, 9, and 10. So, Kefin, Lost Kingdom of Sand. And this came out on Super Famicom and PS2. So they're right. December 29th, 1995. Kefin Lost Kingdom of Sand remains the only classic Ys title to lack a remake. Perhaps not coincidentally, it was also the game that spurred a nearly decade-long hiatus for the franchise. That said, Kefin isn't a bad game by any means. Just a bit too archetypal as far as SNES or JRPGs go. If nothing else, Zandra makes for a remarkable setting, and the story unravels surprisingly well, complete with a time travel plot that has some nice emotional weight at the center of it all. Unlike Adol's 4 other early series adventures, his time in Zandra doesn't offer up much in the way of substantial lore. However, it does set up the stage to enter Arkham Pishdom, a season adventure. So, if you've ever wondered about why one character mentioned Zandra, you have to play Kefin Kingdom of Sand in order to understand. Oh, that's what she meant. Because the funny thing was, only the PS2 version of the opening cutscene of the PS2 version of Pishdom mentions Zandra. And I'm like, the first time I played it, I was like, the hell's Zandra? And now that I'm sort of revisiting it, and on top of that, well, my buddy Ryu has requested for me to replay through the PS2 version of Ark and the Pishdom. So now it's like, after I played Kefin, I was like, yeah, it makes sense. So yeah, it makes sense. So just in case if you're wondering, 0, 1 and 2, 10, 4, 3, 5. Moving on to number 6, which is Lacrimosa of Dana, Ado's adventure on the island of Serin. Now let me tell you, this one, before I actually read what's here, let me tell you, it took like freaking months to almost years to actually get this game. Now I'll tell you why. The price for this. The price they had for this on PS4, it was crazy. Could never get could never actually get this because the price was so goddamn high. It's like, oh, it's like in the 50s or 60s, somewhere like that. Like, no, no. I had to wait till, say, until the hype died down to actually get a copy of it, and it went on sale. I'm like, 20? Yes, I'll take it. I was like, I'll take it. So even I was sent the Steam version. I'm like, I said, you know what? Thank you. I'll take it. I will definitely take it. I said, you know what? It's a win all the same, because I'm like, I went through this game and I could pretty much tell you, it was oh, it was something, let me tell you. It wasn't good, it wasn't bad, it was like, whew. Lacrimosa Adana picks up shortly after the events of 5. Adol starts the game with Lost Kingdom's best sword, only for Adol to experience the mother of all shipwrecks. Stranded on the island of Seddon, Adol must band together with the rest of the survivors to endure the island's harsh conditions. And this came out September 12th, 2017. It's notably the first entry in the series to split the protagonist between Adol and one other character, Dana herself. Adol's arc takes place in the present day, whereas Dana's takes place in the past. But both ultimately come together in a narrative that fundamentally redefines both the franchise mythology and cosmology. And yes, that is probably the only time that you'll ever play Chrono Trigger like you're switching between time. So it's like with Adol, you know, it's like basically you're just transferring. It's like a mind meld, somewhat. It's like his friend, like what you're doing in the past. It goes like, oh, it affects the present, and even in a sense, I believe that happened in Monstrum Nox. Strangely and oddly enough, it's like that. And now we come to number 8, which is Arcanapishtim, otherwise known as 6. Yes, whatever. Adol's adventure on the Canaan Islands. And this came out September 27, 2003 on Windows Mobile, PS2, later PSP, Android, and iOS. If you really want to know, it came out right after they added like some little stuff for the Steam version. So PS2. For me, it was PS2. What's impressive about Arcanapishtim is how it recontextualized 5 games worth of lore into a single epic, which is to ease what the first Avengers film was for Phase 1 of the MCU. The Eldin come back into play. The arcs mentioned in Gabalon in Wanderers, or Oath, is critically important, and the Roman Empire takes on the role of Adol's main antagonist. The Arc of Napishtim, set on the Canaan Islands, and manages to take a rather tactful look at the effects of colonialism and imperialism have on indigenous tribes, while never suggesting their invaders are doing them a genuine service. At its core, though, what makes 6 so special is that it recognizes the series' loose threads and ties them all together, which leads to 9. And that's in Otogo. This came out on Steam and PSP September 17th, 2009. Set half a year after the events of Arcanapishtim, Adol finally reaches Africa, the continent he actually set out to first visit when he initially left his home village. 7 brings it some major lore additions, making it clear that there's so much more to this universe than what was established during the Eldeen arc. For better or worse, 7 also marked a precedent for Adol's adventures being much longer. Where a typical game could be cleared in under 10 hours, 7 pushed the series past 20 plus, where it's been ever since. Oh yes, it has been like that ever since. That said, it wasn't without merit. 7 spends its first half pretending to tell a by-the-number Ys plot, only to flip everything on its head with a fantastic mid-game twist. And that's the beauty of Ys. You think you know the series, but wait. Wait. Oh, it gets better. Which comes to the last in the timeline. And the last one I ever did, and I said, oh, yeah, that last boss. Whew. I almost wanted to give myself a break from the series altogether. Like, okay, what the hell was that? This leads to the last one. Monstrum Nox, Adol's Adventure in Baldurk, which came out September 26, 2019. Monstrum Nox is the latest game in the timeline, along with the darkest tonally. Adol's the oldest he's ever been, and his adventures take him to the prison city of Baldurk. Unfortunately, his reputation does him no favors, prompting the Roman Empire to imprison him. Monstrum Nox comments on Adol's reputation in a way no other game has been able to, and in post-Lacrimosa of Dana franchise, 9 will likely be planting seeds to pave the way towards another landmark title like Arkham the Pishtam. Wow, that says it all right there. But there it is. Therein is your timeline of the series. If you're new to the series, I will break this down for you very, very simply put. Origin, which is 0. 1 and 2. 10. Nordics. 4. Dawn of Ys, or Memories of Celceta. 3. Wanderers from Ys, or Oath in Felghana. 5. Kefin, Lost Kingdom of Sand. 8. Lacrimosa of Dana. 6. Arkham the Pishtam. 7. And finally, Monstrum Nox. So therefore, there is how the series is as a whole, timeline-wise. I mean, if you really think about it, it seems confusing as all hell, but try not to think too much about it. My advice is, if you're getting into the series, do not think about the timeline. Because when it first came out, my first was like, I had to repeat this. When my first brush with the series came out, it was with Wanderers from Ys, and that was the 3rd game. I had Super Nintendo at the time. I tried it out. It made me a fan into the series since. And sadly, it was the only Ys game I've ever played on console until much later, when all the rest of the games were coming out for modern consoles and everything. And on top of that, emulation. Emulation was blowing up, and a lot of the Ys games from 1 to 5 were getting fan translated. So the only ones I've ever played under fan translation was 4, and 5. Because, mind you, there was a DS version of 1 and 2. So I didn't really have to worry about that. I just got 1 and 2 on DS. Download it, boom, play 1 and 2. 3, I already had previous knowledge of it, so didn't have to worry about 3. 4, I didn't know about, and 5, I didn't know about. 6, I knew about because I actually had 6. 7, I didn't know about because I didn't have a PSP. 8, I knew about because I have a PS4, and on top of that, it was probably the only game I actually ever wanted, as far as, you know, wanting to have it for myself and experience it, because my friends were talking around me about it. And then there's 9, Monstrum Nox. Again, friends talk around me about it, and therefore I just said, 10 is the latest one, in which I played via demo, and then I received the full version from a friend of mine on Facebook. Just say, here, boom. Guy's been bugging me ever since, but I'm glad he just told me, you know, this is what to expect. So without spoiling you, here's what you might want to consider. I said, oh, there's a super boss? No, I don't think so. I said, I played through 9. The final boss was super boss territory enough. That just tells you something right there. If they say, oh, there's a super boss, like no. But no. It's the same thing with saying, oh, there's a true ending. There's a true ending. And how do I get the true end? No, I'll just take the good ending. Okay, I'll just take the normal ending. Can we call it a square? Okay, cool. Cool. But to those who are new to wanting to discover the series, good. You can actually start from Origin and play it up to the most recent game. Just really, that's all you had to do. It's like, don't worry about the timeline. If you're worrying about the timeline, don't worry about the timeline. Just, it's like there are newer versions of, say for Kefin, there's 1 and 2 all the way up to 10, with the exception of Kefin still being on Super Nintendo, but that's fan translated, and you can always find that online. I won't tell you how to find it. You had to do it yourself. But thought I'd share this with you, since I myself am a JRPGist. And out of all the JRPG series I've ever done, this is probably the only series I can say I aim to complete. And until they decide to either make a retelling of 5, we're not going to call it a remake, we're going to call it a retelling of 5. Or even if they decide to make an 11, whatever that's going to be, well, I say just enjoy the series for all it's worth. I hope that makes sense. So join me next time when I have something else to share in the wonderful, strange world of video games. Until then, I've been your friendly neighborhood Tenkaichi. And I'll see you in my next video. Until then, take care.